have gotten to heroin have passed through these gateways. And so, yeah, marijuana, I do believe, is absolutely a gateway that people who end up at the higher level substances pass through. Just about anybody who does heroin or methamphetamine or cocaine has smoked nicotine at some point in their life, or are a smoker. Nicotine was a gateway that they passed through before they got to that other location. Marijuana is at the front end. And so, yeah, from the theory point of view, yes. Now, to go with the concept of does one particular substance use propel you or move you to the next substance? Absolutely, I believe so. And I think that's a learned behavior. If I smoke something and it makes me feel good, I am more likely to smoke something else to feel good. If I drink something and it feels good, or I put something in my body and it makes me feel good, or even better yet, it reduces a negative and gives me a positive, that's the strongest human learning behavior connection you can make. If I learn that to do in a particular way or with a particular substance, I am more likely to do that with something else. And so some of that concept of does one use propel you to the next, I think that's more of a behavioral and a learned conditioned response. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does, very much so. I was just curious on what you thought about.
Did you? Yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry you lost your kiddo. I respect that. My heroin addicts all tell me the same thing, you know, and I'll ask them, and it's like, you know, what do I need to tell the kiddos so they don't end up where you end up? And they tell me, just tell them not to do it. And it makes me laugh my ass off. And we all start laughing, and we look at it and said, how many times did I tell you that? It's like 100, but it doesn't work, right? You know, but yeah, they'll start at the beginning, and then it will progress and move forward. And marijuana is very accessible. It is lower level. It gets people comfortable with consuming things, and then they are very much at a risk for continuing on. I smoked a lot of weed and drank a lot of alcohol. I didn't become dependent upon some of the higher end stuff. I don't know if some of that was wisdom or just different personality. I like depressants. I don't like stimulants. My brother likes stimulants, which I'm glad I didn't get to heroin because I think that just scares me. And I'm glad that the opiate medications didn't exist back in my day when I was using, because I think I would have been at bigger risk for that.
Okay, so we need to wrap up, don't we?
All right. I'm taking up too much of your guys' time. I think that's it, too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for being here, you guys.
All right, Clackamas County, who is in this to win it with me? This is my friend Polka. Come here, sit. Yes. My friend Polka has been here for a long time, and she is looking for her forever family. And I want to extend a challenge to everyone who's going to see this video. Let's get her home. Yes? She is a sweet little pit bull. She is, oh goodness, I believe she's like 5 years old. Good girl. She's looking for a home that does not have cats. Yes, good girl. She is looking for a home that has children that are 9 years of age or over. Yee, good girl. She's looking for someone who's committed to keeping her training going. You're gonna see a lot in this video, what we've been working on with her here. And she is a smart girl. She's a swift learner. She loves learning and training. Yes, good girl. She's a staff favorite. Not that they all aren't, but Polka's been with us for a minute, and we are determined that she is going to go home soon. She's a nice girl. She's learning to walk nicely on leash. Yes, good. I can show you all kinds of training stuff that we've been doing with her if you come in and meet her. But she's a sweet, sweet girl who's been here far too long and has been extraordinarily patient while looking for her forever home.
My name is Captain Teddy. I'm the 15th Transportation Company Commander, and what I have behind me are the first 3 out of eventually 30 that we'll be receiving, so we can start testing these at the platoon level.
What we have here is the leader-follower system. These trucks are designed and they're fit with autonomous components and sensors that will enable the vehicle to operate unmanned or without a crew. So you would drive out a certain distance and build that digital path. Once there's enough data collected between the crewed vehicle and the follower vehicles, you would hit execute and they would follow along the same path that you drove. But you can also operate them what we call teleoperations with an Xbox controller. So I could also select a vehicle and then operate it with this Xbox controller, and then I will see that vehicle on this screen from the front or from the rear using that 360 cam.
The cool factor with the autonomous vehicle is definitely being able to sit back and actually watch the vehicle move and steer and read its environment. This is absolutely revolutionary when it comes to the modernization initiative.
Under what circumstances would you need to drive one of these manually?
It depends on the mission, the terrain, the enemy, the circumstances. All of that stuff will determine how we use these vehicles. Anytime that you can take a crew out of a vehicle that is softer than a gun truck is always good. And that's the purpose, and that's the theory of operations using the leader-follower systems.
My name is Dick Cole. I was born on September 7th, 1950. I entered the U.S. Army Air Corps the 22nd of November of 1940. At that time, the Army Air Corps was the only flying part of the Army. We volunteered for supposedly a dangerous mission, and that's all we knew about it. The first time we've taken off of a carrier was when we launched for the mission. You wonder what you were heading into, because none of us had been in combat before. We flew the mission at, I'd say, an average of 250 feet or 300 feet, except the bombing mission.
The planes sweep in without being discovered. They separate into groups to attack the several objectives carefully selected by means of accurate intelligence to ensure that only targets of military value will be hit.
I don't think any of the group consider themselves to be heroes. We were job-oriented, and we were all happy with the fact that we did our job. The heroes of World War II were not only the people that gave their life, but the people like the men and women that built the equipment that we were able to fight the war with.
That's all we're asking people to do is just to be compassionate enough, I guess, and caring enough to check in on one another and just make sure we're doing it right. This is a tough business. Life is a tough business. But then life in the military adds on to that. There is a stigma. Certainly, there's a stigma surrounded with suicide. There's a stigma surrounded with mental health.
To be able to reach out to a friend and to encourage a friend to get help when they need it is the biggest gift that you can give somebody. And so, you know, just to maintain awareness for each other and also for ourselves.
I think we have to find a way to be there for one another, that when someone starts talking seriously about hurting themselves or others, we need to take it seriously. Knowing that we're not all trained clinicians, and so no one's asking anyone to immediately intervene, but to help them find someone, a professional, who can intervene.
This is what we exist to do. Like your COs, the captains and admirals, they literally pay us to be in the space where sailors can find care, where they aren't stressed, where they can decompress.
So the level of confidentiality that you have when you talk to a chaplain is unlike any other provider. So when I say confidentiality, I mean 100% no exceptions.
Kind of wraparound services that'll take care of mental health issues, take care if there's something going on with the family, if there are financial issues, financial pressures going on, relationship pressures going on.
But then really where we can come in is where the person's in the quote red. So there's problems with family, relationships, there's a noticeable decline in functioning. Sailors can go to their primary care provider and they can ask for a referral for mental health.
The biggest thing is, alongside the challenges of the Navy, I think comes a really unique community. And so what we have to do with that community is make sure that we're taking care of each other.
And so it's not always just what someone says. Someone begins to isolate themselves. They're not showing up at the parties anymore. They're not, or when they are, they tend to be alone, yeah? And it's something off, it's something different. Those are times, I think, when it's really important for us as friends and fellow service persons, to approach them and say, hey, Joe, are you doing okay?
So what we should be shooting for is developing community in our workspaces, in our units, wherever it is, so that people can actually open up about what's going on in their life. A lot of times we just forget that sailors have other lives, right?
And people forget that we can't do this alone. None of us do it. We all need to walk with someone every once in a while. That's what our brother and sisterhood is about.
One thing that we don't hear about, especially in light of people who do take their own lives, when they don't seek mental health, is all the success stories of people who do get better.
Most people want to make it through. They want to succeed. And really all it is that sometimes we need someone to walk with us a little way until we're back on our feet and ready for the job again.
Alan was 3 years older than I was, quintessential big brother. I tried to do everything he did. He was the one who taught me how to ride a bike, drive a car. He called my parents and said, I'm going to join the Army. I want to be the best. And he was selected to be Special Forces. We got a call that, they came to our house and told my parents actually very little, other than he was missing. And so for the first couple of years, we were just on our own.
The anguish you suffered, the families of brave men, of listed prisoners of war or missing in action, the misery and anguish is unspeakable. Something the rest of us can really never know, even in a partial measure. If they could be here today, millions of Americans from every corner of this land who have only a glimmer of your pain would say to you, we want with all our hearts to share your burden, to realize our common quest, the return of all POWs, the fullest possible accounting for the still missing, and the repatriation of the remains of those who died.
Until they all come home. A creed of the American military to never leave a man behind. For the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, it's their singular objective.
I think it speaks volumes to the character and the values of the United States, that here we are decades after the conflicts ended, that we are still inherently fulfilling our role and our promise made, that when we send a service member off to war, that should they become missing, that it's our responsibility as a nation to bring them back home.
To meet their goal, they travel anywhere U.S. troops have served, conducting historical investigations and archaeological digs.
Time is our biggest enemy, so we're talking decades that remains have been in the ground. You have high-speed crashes where the impact created a massive field investigation site. Witnesses are dying. In many cases, you have a remote, rural, dense, jungle-infested territory. It's difficult for our teams to excavate the site in an expeditious and, more importantly, diligent manner.
And even when remains are recovered, identifying them in the lab presents challenges of their own.
In this laboratory, we're working with what in the forensic realm people might call residual remains. These are mostly the hard tissues that are still here with us after so many years of being missing. And this would be bones and teeth, for example. And so we have a heavy reliance on anthropology. That's the profession that actually studies how you can say things about a person from their bones. We also have dental records from most of our missing service members, thankfully. And so our forensic dentist here in the lab are able to compare what we see in the teeth to dental records that we have retained in the Department of Defense for all of these years. But we also use DNA extensively. The majority of our cases involve some type of DNA testing. But to make good use of DNA results, you have to have something to compare it to.
Though it's now common practice to retain DNA samples from service members, before the early 1990s, DNA testing essentially didn't exist as a forensic tool. This means that to be able to use DNA as a method of identification, they need samples from close family members to use as a reference.
But it's not easy. Some of them we run into dead ends with, and we can't find anybody. As you can imagine, when you're dealing with literally tens of thousands of missing service members, particularly from World War II, the services have an enormous burden to try finding all of these family members, each and every one of them with their individual unique stories. What happened to the family, where the family moved. We always like to take opportunities to say if there's anyone out there who has a family member who's missing, to reach out to that service casualty office and help us get the DNA samples that we need.
On the front end, conducting archaeological digs in dense jungle, harsh terrain, and occasionally underwater, requires support from outside of DPAA. Dozens of service members from every branch of the military are asked to augment recovery teams.
We can not only support the recoveries, we actually can see it accomplished. And it's one of the few times in our service that we can start to finish really feel good about what we've done. What's amazing to me is when we have soldiers go that volunteered to go for whatever reason, may not have been a reason other than they wanted to stop the monotony of the day here or take a mission. They come back a different person, and they have a different respect for our Army and for what we do.
Bringing our missing home can be a decades-long journey that takes a small city worth of people to accomplish.
Actually, it was March 7th of 2016. I picked up the phone. It was the night before what would have been Alan's 70th birthday. Picked up the phone, and this deep voice asked for Judy, and I said, "This is she." And he said, "I'm calling from the Army." And my legs literally went out from under me, and I said, "You found Alan?" And he said, "We did." I mean, I could barely breathe. The funeral itself was just such a joyful homecoming. And again, I'm one of the very fortunate ones. And I hope that the other family members will finally receive their accounting. That is such a sacred commitment that the United States has to do. Americans need to be made aware that POWs, MIAs are still missing from all wars, and that DPA is making a difference in fulfilling that mission for the fullest possible accounting and bringing all of them home.